All right, so I've got the microphones here. We've got everything connected, the board's ready, and behind me on the dashboard, we have a new sphere that just opened in Las Vegas, a $2 billion sphere. And inside that sphere, U2, the Irish band, gave a concert. It's an amazing addition to the Las Vegas skyline. And that's just another big thing that's happened. Not the next big thing, but it's a new thing that looks pretty cool. It's the planet lit up in Las Vegas, and I think I'm going to sneeze, but that would really sound bad on the microphone. So let me just see if I can hold my sneeze for a moment. All right. So we can get started. Welcome everyone to our afternoon journey through the human story into the future. And we are going to touch down today on this idea of sustaining it or sustainability and whether this whole thing called human progress that's been taking place on planet Earth, driven by humans, can actually be sustained in the way that we imagine progress and growth on the planet. So we need to really drill down today on this idea of sustainability. But before we do that, I'd like to review, and also I might be able to um, read out loud a reflection, but I haven't had time to tee them up. So let's just take a peek and see what's been coming in by way of the second reflections, and just know that they were due last night. Okay, so let's see what is popping into the discussion thread. And there's, okay, so we've got, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, not bad. We've got quite a bit. So, oh, great. I see yours there, Nico. Great. Uh, Brandon, I see yours. That's good. Brandon's with us online. And let's see. Carol's, I'm sure, is there. Maria, good. Maria, you're there. Tessa's there. And I might just randomly pick something. Christina's there. But let's, yes, Nico. Okay. So, Nico, why don't you come sit up here for a moment? Take the microphone, and I will put yours out. Well, finish your, if you want, finish your Timbits, and we can do it a little later, okay? Or your sandwich. Finish your sandwich, okay? It's lunchtime. Come on in, Parsa. Yeah, and we can start with some others, but um, first, let me just clear. I've had so much going this morning. Uh, I'll bring out, yeah, microphones. So we'll put mics over here, and actually, we'll bring students up here. So, I'm kind of. All right. So before we get going and we review, and by way of reviewing, I like to read out loud or have the students read out loud their um, reflections and assignments. And we did that last week, didn't we? Yeah, good. Because that's the time when I can also give some feedback as well. But things are looking pretty good so far. Uh, One thing I would say in the way of feedback as we start a little bit of this now is I like it when students call me Professor Lon. That's good. I mean, I love that. But officially, if you are going to refer to a professor in another course or generally, you should call them by their last name. So it would be Professor Appleby, not Professor. But I don't mind. I don't mind for those of you watching online and for the students watching the recordings. I've noticed that some of you will refer to me as Professor Lon, and I want you to know that I like that. It's great. It's just not correct. Just know the correct form is that when you address, it's like a doctor, or any other Mr. whatever, you use the last name, not the first name. But I like the first name too. So just know that you can continue to say Lon, Professor Lon, whatever you like, as long as I teach you and make sure you know what the correct version is. If you're going to address a professor in another course, some of them may be more strict and they may not necessarily like it. But other than that, just please watch the, again, the word count. But I know this came up last class in terms of wanting to go longer, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned to a student I'm looking at right now that less is more. But if you really, really need to go a little longer, particularly on an assignment, come talk to me in advance or shoot me an email and let me know to be prepared. But otherwise, I do design the assignments and the reflections to have a little less rather than more in terms of writing, because I want you to figure out what to leave out. That's the hard part. So, in terms of any other reviewing right now, let's just also take a look at just where we've been going so far. And I think I can do this pretty fast, which is I go over to, where did that go for a second? I had the rundown. There it is. Okay, so let me just bring it back for a moment. Sorry, and I'll bring the reflections back. So it should be, there we go. Good. So let's remember what we've been covering so far. All right. We have been looking at the idea of how to think about the future in more realistic ways and learning some of the, techniques that came from an individual by the name of, do you remember his name? The person who gave us some ideas on how to think about the future with more practical, maybe techniques that he's developed in his work as a futurist at Stanford University. And he wrote a piece for the Harvard Business Review that we looked at briefly. Paul Sappho, remember Paul Sappho? So that's something that's really important for you to think about in terms of if you're looking for ways to kind of be able to forecast more effectively, there are some skills that he has actually developed in his forecasting techniques called 6 Rules for Effective Forecasting. And it's right there. We looked, remember at the videos from MIT, the one video about freeing your mind and being able to really think about, and here's a critical term, and I'll put it on the board in a moment. I'm just going to write it down here, and then I'll get a student to do it. But it's called scenario planning. And I just want to do a quick review of this and some of history's lessons and the next big thing before we get to sustaining it. But let's see who is going to be the one ready for the hot seat. Well, Nico's coming up to read his assignment. Jalen, why don't you come up? You're not ready? Okay. It's, what's your name? Is it? Prerna, yeah. Prerna, you want to come up? Yeah, you're always ready. And okay, so maybe you can help us understand. What? Take a moment, okay? Take a Prerna is going to come up. And what's your name again? What? Mubarak. Okay. Why don't you come up and sit on the seat and take a microphone? Not quite. Okay. I can always talk to Grayson, but let's wait for Prerna. Then Parsa can come up. So, okay. Come, and I've turned the microphone on for you, and grab a seat here. Okay. So, so let's do a little review, okay? And we're going to put Prerna on the spot a little bit, get people sort of woken up. It's heading into the afternoon doldrums, but scenario planning. Do you remember scenario planning? The idea of scenario planning?
I can recall a bit.
Okay. Can you tell me what you sort of remember about this idea of scenario planning?
Being open about the whole concept and like not having any sort of thoughts that, oh, this happened, so this is going to happen this way.
Yes.
So That's like my major feedback, take back from that class.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what do you need to free up in order to be, you know, planning and thinking of all different scenarios before you make a decision? What needs to be freed up?
Your mind.
Your mind. Exactly. Free up your imagination. So let me try this for a moment, okay? Let's just, by way of reviewing, let's apply this idea of scenario planning to something that's happening right now that you consider important in the world. Just off the top of your head, it could be anything. It could be your life, but it needs to be something that's important to kind of all of us. What is it that you might say? And let's play out scenario planning a little bit and see.
I
Just give
think right now everyone's worried about the midterms.
the midterms. Okay, good. Okay, midterms. So everybody is thinking about the midterms, more or less. Okay. So, Prerna, how do you think the midterms are going to go for you? Really well?
Um, I would think so, because as of now, I have like a plan for it. I know it
Yeah.
doesn't always work.
Exactly.
That's what I've learned. But I think I am on the schedule right now about like what I want to do and how I'm going to organize my assignments and stuff. So I think it would go well.
Do you have a plan in place just in your mind for what might happen, as you had told us in an earlier class when something went wrong? So what could go wrong? It's just thinking. It's not saying it's going to happen, but because what I'm trying to do is help you to be ready for everything. See, do you understand that's what Paul Sappho helped us to do with scenario planning, and what the MIT video was also touching on, this idea of. So just for the sake of it, what would be a disaster for you with midterms? What would be bad?
I wouldn't call it a disaster, but it'll be really bad if I fall sick.
Excellent.
And it honestly came to my mind because I was sick last night and I was thinking that maybe I'll have to cancel my classes for tomorrow, but it worked out fine.
You're better today?
I'm all good now.
Well, let's play this out for a moment, because this is exactly the type of thing that you should be doing with all kinds of important events that you are thinking about in terms of the future. Okay? So let's say that you get sick again during the exam period. What's your plan? What
Well,
would you do?
I think the first responsible thing would be to email my professor and let them know that I might not be able to attend the class in person because I don't want to spread it around.
Yeah.
And then maybe like look, then I would honestly take a while, focus on myself, regain my health because I don't think I can work when I'm sick. I don't want to fall more sick.
Sure. And what would you tell the professor exactly in the email?
Let them know the exact situation, what I am feeling, what I'm going through, and ask them for guidance about how I can proceed further.
That makes sense. I'm just curious. Would any of you here, just raise a hand, would any of you here not want to do that and just go and write the exams sick? Would any of you do it because you don't want to contact your professor? You don't want to create any kind of sense that maybe he or she thinks you're making up an excuse. So you decide, I'm going to grin and bear it and go write the exams sick. Would you do that? No? You would write the professor? Excellent. Okay. Good. So, two scenarios. One is that things go well. One is you're sick. Well, let's do one more scenario and then we'll move on. What's another scenario around exams that could be something that is unpredictable and that you want to be ready for? Think about it for a moment.
Could be some kind of emergency that disturbs me.
An emergency. Right. What about if, let's say, you panic? What if you get into a kind of situation where you suddenly are blocked during the beginning of the exam and you can't seem to remember what you studied, or you just feel like it's not happening and you know that the clock is ticking? What would you do then? And you're sitting there in either the room, the gym, or wherever you've gone, or you're sitting, or you're probably going to be sitting with a group of people doing it in a large, okay. So what would you do if you find yourself suddenly blocked, and because of fear, just because maybe you were up all night because of some personal problem that you had to deal with, and you really don't have the right energy, but you know you've got to get this done. So imagine that. Let's hear what your plan is. Jalen, do you want to try? Let's we'll get a microphone over. Hold on to that, okay? And Jalen, it's on, okay? So go ahead and tell us what you would do.
I will just try and take a couple deep breaths and just try and keep myself focused so I can finish the exam.
Do you know how to breathe? Like take deep breaths? Do you ever meditate or do any kind of exercise where you know how to breathe properly?
No, I just try and go in and out.
I think to like just
Go ahead,
add
Prem.
on to that, I would just like take a minute to shut down my eyes to get myself out of that visual.
Yeah.
And then maybe try to focus on myself back. That would just like, regain my breathing. I think that would help. Like,
Well, let's for a moment actually do a breathing exercise, because I can show you something about breathing, because I do it myself when I get into a panic about things. Let me just check as well up on the live chat. I see Brandon has said, when I'm sick sometimes I gaslight myself by saying I'm not actually sick and I'm just complaining or trying to make an excuse. Brandon, did I read that correctly? Do you want to? Oh no, his microphone's not working. So okay, we'll assume. Yep, good. Okay, so you can text us in real time almost. So basically, Brandon was saying something similar to what I said earlier: is that he's going to grin and bear it and just sort of, kind of, say to himself, "I'm not sick, and I'm just complaining or just trying to make an excuse." Based on what we
I
said
think
before,
gaslight is a relatable word there.
gaslighting myself. Brandon, can you explain a little bit more in the live chat about what you mean by gaslighting? Because it's a very common term these days that is used a lot, along with a new term called permacrisis. People say we're in a state of constant crisis with everything, permacrisis. But what do you mean by gaslighting, Brandon? Go ahead and give it some thought, and we'll come back to you in a moment, okay? And I saw Ajoy in Bangladesh was with us, but he may have actually left the class momentarily. He mentioned about exam being a fear. I want to show you something about breathing. Do you know where on this area, the chest or the belly, the best place is to do good breathing that calms you down? Should I breathe sort of in the chest, open up, or should I breathe in the diaphragm deeper here? And when I breathe, how long should my inhalation be, and how long should I exhale in order to get some calm? Have you ever looked into that before in terms of where you breathe and how long you should breathe?
I've read that you need to like breathe here.
Yes.
I am not certain how long, even though I know the inhalation is longer and exhalation is shorter, I believe.
No, it's the opposite. It's the opposite, and I'm going to demonstrate it for you. Okay, so Brandon, are you watching and you can hear clearly about the breathing exercise? We'll come back to gaslighting, but everyone, Maria, are you still with us? Christina? Okay, I'll just assume we're not going to worry too much about online. And all the people watching the recording, of course, you're going to be able to follow this. I'd like you all to try something for a moment. Everybody in the class, whether you're online right now synchronously or watching the recording later, we're going to take a moment to do some breathing together. And the reason I'm doing this is because we're trying to develop a way to deal with something that we fear might happen. And then it happens. It actually, our fears come true. What do we do in that moment? When our fears start to come true, when we're stressed and overwhelmed with something, but we can't go anywhere, we can't leave the room, we can't leave the group, we have to remain present. And so we suggested we breathe. Well, there's a way to breathe that actually can help. And here's how you do it, okay? I want you to watch me for a moment, and I'll make sure I do this correctly. But first, you breathe in through your nose, and you exhale through your mouth, and your exhale is 4 times as long as your inhale. Watch this. And then you'll try this, okay? Because you will see how the calm starts to come over you. I've done this so many times on the 407 when I start to speed and I know I might get another ticket, or when somebody in front of me in the passing lane will not move and I'm ready, I'm getting into road rage, like I want to blink my lights and get that person out of the way, and I know, so I don't close my eyes because I'm still driving. It's coming in here. Even better when you hold it for a second or two, then 4 times or more. Give it a shot. Tell me how you feel after doing that just twice, okay? 1 inhale, hold it, breathe out through your mouth at least 4 times as long. Do it again, and I'll check in with you, okay? And please try it online as well, Christina, Brandon, and others. And I'll do it with you, but I want now you to do it as well. Sure, go back. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll take the microphone, okay, so we don't hear your deep breathing, although... Is your mic on? You can turn it off if you want. Okay? This is very, very useful. So we're talking about a scenario that you found yourself in. We're just imagining. You're writing a midterm, and you're having a panic attack. You're forgetting stuff. Question, you look at this question. Geez, I know I studied that, but I can't remember what I was doing. But I know I remember, but I can't remember. I know. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. Let's do it, okay? In 3, please breathe in through your nose with me and just follow me, okay? In 3, 2, 1. Well, I could keep going. Remember, I like to swim, and I'm I'm 60, but I stay in shape, as you should, so I can breathe out a long time. But you can too. Let's try it again, okay? The trick is that you're not breathing in your chest. It's in here, the diaphragm. Deeper, you're breathing in your mouth. You're not going, no, 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 no. That's the out breath. That's panic. That's, no way. This is, okay, so in 3, 2, 1, through the nose. That's twice. Imagine if you did that for 10 minutes. Now, I just want to check in with you before we move on, okay? This is humanity's destiny as we move ahead this semester is about your destiny. If you look at where we're heading, it's about the human brain and then about legacy, which is about what you're going to do, how you imagine your future, and what kinds of things you might do in your life. A critical part of this is how you deal with anxiety. Do you know yesterday was World Mental Health Day? Well, it's important that we learn some basic skills about how to calm down. And I'd just like to ask you, Prerna, did you feel a little bit of the calm that comes with that? And you can say no. You don't have to tell me what I want to hear. I want to make sure that it actually helped and that you're learning. So if you didn't, you need to do it a little longer. But I'm just asking, did you feel a little bit of something there? Like something was... Jalen? Yes? A little bit of something? Carol? Yeah, definitely. Cece? A little bit. And Mubarak? Yeah? Grayson? Tiny bit? Nico? Okay. Parsa? So the next time that you find yourself in this situation, and maybe you do drive too, and you get into moments of potential road rage, or you want to speed too much, or who knows, whatever, think about that. The belly breath, the diaphragm, in through the nose, and then exhale through the mouth, and not like an open mouth, but more, so you can hear that sound. It's like almost the surf on the beach or whatever this, or the wind, you know, it's, and it really, it's a good, let's see what happened over in the Cosmos online. Maria, did you try that? Planet MS, are you there? Planet MS. Maria, have you left Planet MS and gone? Because we may send out a rescue. Okay, forget that. Brandon, I feel a bit, okay, Tessa, good. We've got it in the line. I feel a bit more relaxed after doing, great. Good, Tessa, thank you. I wanted to just check in just a little bit. Did you feel it? Well, there was another reason why I wanted to do this with you today. After Nico comes and reads your reflection, I'm going to hit you with some pretty heavy news in a moment. So get ready when we talk about sustainability. And I'm going to show you some research that will tell you something about where our civilization may be heading if we don't do anything about it. But you might want to, at that point, take a few deep breaths. But let's do this first, okay? So why don't you come up, and do you have it in front of you, the assignment or the reflection? Okay, I'll put it up here, but if you... could you bring up your computer and read it just that way? And I'll have it that way. You can read it directly from your computer, okay? And let's go over it. And I'll put it up behind you, but at least you can read it from something you're familiar with. And let's go and see what Nico has written for his second reflection, and let's talk about it a little bit. So Tessa, I see Maria, Faith, Annika, Jasmine, Jordan Charlton is here, Brandon, good, Vince, Nico, here we are. Nice. I mean, I'll try and enlarge this, but I think it might be easier for you to read from there, okay? And so let me get your mic. Okay, Nico's going to read out loud his reflection. Okay, go for it. And this is all in aid of helping you to get ready for the assignments that are coming, because you're going to be doing a lot of deeper reflecting with the assignments, as well as incorporating research into it in your final assignment. It will be a reflective research project. And so it's really important that you get familiar with this voice. We call this voice that you're writing in now, where you're personally reflecting on things and why they matter. So, Nico, why don't you go ahead and start reading, okay?
Well, in this class, we had a big talk about what we think is humanity's next big thing. We all had different ideas and thoughts about it, but the most common one was about brain chips being inserted into human brains and stuff like that. It's definitely interesting and it's scary in its own way. However, the main one that caught my eye was the one I produced, which was humans just discovering what is truly in all of our oceans. We've only mapped out about 20%. We've only physically seen about 5%. I feel like that our ocean is not just some dark abyss with nothing to see in it and nothing in it. I feel that it could be like it's a different world down there, and I feel there would be amazing discoveries waiting to be found.
Keep going. Nice, clean sentences. Making sense. Keep going.
There will, of course, be a bunch of interesting creatures and living beings that we'll likely discover, but I think the biggest thing down there for humans could be newer, more resources, because we keep thinking we need to go to like a different planet to find resources. But I feel that we should search our whole planet first before we like just saying, okay, there's nothing here.
Keep reading what you wrote. Read it from there.
Including especially the oceans, cave systems, even volcanoes in the oceans, which we haven't discovered all, I'm sure. I'm sure that there are things in the oceans that we never even thought of being possible. Maybe something almost unnatural.
Great. Finish the final paragraph, and then we'll talk about it.
One thing I've also thought about in the ocean, I feel that we could create underwater cities or bases or just some sort of structure for living down there. The only thing I have against it, though, is the thought that I do not want humans like destroying the oceans with buildings and housings like we have been doing for decades to our lands and forests up here. I don't want us to ravage it. Like I see videos where some parts of the oceans are already ruined by humans. I doubt that all of this will happen soon, and I know for sure that other events like brain chips and maybe even economic crashes will come before our oceans being completely discovered.
Way to go. If I would give a mark to it right now, 5. Yep. Now, let's understand something for a moment. Why would I give him a 5 and not a 4 or a 3 or even a note that I'm smelling AI here? Which could be even worse. Why a 5? 5 out of 5. What do you think? Anybody online? Tessa, you want to try? Can you jump on your microphone and tell us, just because it might be faster?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Well, you can tell by reading it that it wasn't written by AI, which is a good thing. And he used a lot of like personal reflection and his own ideas. And I think it was very well written as well.
Yeah. He talked about that last class. He was very clear about the oceans. Of course, you didn't get too many claps, but in the end, who cares? It doesn't matter. Okay. And Elon Musk tends to get all the attention these days anyway, right? But yeah, thanks, Tessa. That really helps for us to understand why 5 out of 5. I would just add by saying that actually this is well written in terms of clarity. What I like about this is the student has taken the time to remove excessive things. So there doesn't seem to be any wasted or extra words or things, but it actually feels pretty tight and clean, meaning that he's made an attempt to make sure that each thought is a new thought and he's not repeating himself. Now, can I ask you, Nico, how long did you spend writing this?
It took about half an hour to think, and then I wrote, and then I took about 15 and a half an hour to write it again.
Okay, but you thought about it for half an hour?
Yeah.
And then when you wrote it, after you wrote it, did you proofread it?
Yeah, I gave it to my girlfriend to proofread because I don't know. I feel like someone else, like a different person, proofreading is more effective than myself doing it.
Sure. And that helped?
Yeah, and she said, yeah, it's good.
Sure. I'd like to know from some of you at least, what sort of techniques do you have for proofreading? Because I can give you one that's quite effective. I could give it to my wife, but I don't, she's too busy so with other things. So you can give it to your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your friend, and that's a good idea. Give it to another pair of eyeballs, but we don't always have that chance. Carol, what's your technique for proofreading? And someone helps you, just like someone helped Nico. Sure. Oh, give you the microphone. Hold on. Yeah, so they can hear you, okay? Go on. Yeah.
So I was saying that I usually get an early appointment in SARS, so they help me. But before that, I used to read maybe like 2 or 3 times to prove reading it on myself. But reading slowly, I used to do that.
Yeah.
But now that I have better management of my grammar, based on the help I have SARS later on in the future, when I started to come here in college for the first times, it was a little more easier for me to understand what I'm trying to write. Much more quickly, I think more quickly than before.
Yes.
In my discussion, my case, for example, I start writing immediately, mostly the next day. For example, last week, I began to write and everything, all my thoughts, everything.
Yes.
And from there, it just was the main point from the video class and everything. From
Good.
there, I accumulate and add more stuff, right? Add more things that I want to add additionally, right?
But you have someone who helps you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will have someone help me.
But I want to mention something just to stop you for a sec, because I want to make sure I have time to do this, and then we're going to move on with today's sustaining it. I have a very useful technique for all of you to think about. It works well. I've used it for many, many years, writing professionally for magazines, newspapers, television scripts, and shows, and all sorts of things, including all my work I do as a professor. Raise a hand if any of you ever come in, ever read a hard copy of what you've written before you submit it for marking. Raise a hand if normally what you do is you write it on your computer, you check it, and then you press send or submit. Do you print it out ever? Raise a hand if you ever print out what you write to check. Carol? Grayson? No? Tessa, do you ever print out? Planet Tessa? No. Oh, you don't? Okay. Brandon, do you ever print out what you write? and proofread it from the hard copy. I like only do that with emails. Okay. I guarantee you that the next time that you write something and you want to make sure that it's grammatically correct or as correct as you can make it, not just in terms of the mechanics of word choice and word placement and the arrangement of sentences, but just generally how things are flowing, how it sounds, is print it out. Take it off the computer. Have that thing that you wrote in your hand and read it. And you can even read it out loud to yourself. I guarantee you that when you do that, you will be able to self-correct. Not everything, but some things. Think of it as a car wash. You're just going to put it through this little car wash at the end to catch a lot of those problems and little grammatical mistakes that can be caught by you. But you wouldn't see it on the screen because you've been looking at the screen for so long and so long that you kind of can't quite see everything. But being able to see it in front of you, in your hand, in something hard, with the printed letters right there and the printed words, you can kind of see things more clearly. I'd like you to try that in the future with your first assignment. Before you submit it, please try that, and it will help you self-correct some of your writing problems. Good. Okay. So I'm just thinking that we can get ready now to start something in terms of the main part, but I need to set things up a little bit. So, Parsa, could you come back here? You were here. That was good. You were here last week, and okay. Why don't you come and sit over here, and we'll kind of pick your brains a little bit, just a little bit. Get you more in to the class. Just try it, okay? Just try it. We'll give you a microphone. Prerna, would you go over to the smartboard and make some notes, okay? And I'm going to present some things to all of you. And great. And let's get you. And it's Mubarak, right? Okay. So let's give Mubarak a microphone. We'll make sure Parsa has a microphone. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Carol. You turn it on. It's like that. And then you hold it like there, like a karaoke. Okay. Parsa, we got to get Parsa a microphone. Where's that other mic? Jalen. Okay. And then the third one is somewhere because Prerna is going to have her own microphone. So where is it? Nico? Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. So we've got the smartboard going. Yeah, good. And Prerna knows. Prerna, can you write up there, sustaining it as our title? Sustaining it. And I'm going to bring something over here to this other side. I'm getting kind of fancy. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to run the PowerPoint from here. Okay, and let me just get it over here. You can all see. Great. Okay, so I'm going to start by, I'm doing something for the first time with all of you. I've never done this before, which is what I love about coming into the global classroom and trying different things in education, all in the aid of making it more memorable for all of you so you can really learn. I'm actually going to deliver a little lecture, my PowerPoint, but I'm going to do it with all of us like this. And that's the first slide right behind you now, okay? And I'm going to try to help you to understand something about this idea that human progress is exerting a cost on the natural world. So could you write down, please, for us to start, what is the cost of human progress? What is the cost of human progress? Now, for those of you online, Tessa And can you just confirm that you can see clearly Prerna's notes right now, that you can follow with us? Brandon, can you just confirm? Excellent. Okay, good. So everybody's together now. Right now, you are looking at an image of a group of scientists who sat down together in the 1990s, just before the beginning of the 21st century. Just before the beginning of the third millennium, the 2000s. A millennium is a 1,000-year period, right? Make sense? Okay. And what these scientists tried to do, there were about 800 of them from all over the world. They tried to study what has been happening with human civilization on planet Earth over the last 2,000 years. In other words, a really big picture, looking back 1,000 years and then another 1,000, right to the beginning of the calendar when Jesus of Nazareth, if you take the Christian calendar, was born. Came into Anno, it's called, when we say Anno Domini, after Jesus came into the world, after he was born, Anno Domini, AD. So went all the way back to 0 AD up to 2000, which is when we had a transition, and some of you may not have even been born then. Parsa, how old are you? 20. Okay, so you weren't even yet born. Mubarak? 18. Okay. So you were both born in this new century. Or this new millennium. We might even call you a millennial. Somebody's got their microphone on because we can hear you somewhere. But anyways, just be aware online. We heard some coughing, but just check your computer, okay? I want to understand something first. We've established that we have right now young people who are born in this new period. It's a new millennium, the 2000s. It's a new century, the 21st century. And we had these scientists who actually sat down just before this period to kind of understand what's been happening over these 1,000-year periods. And maybe by knowing what's been happening over these 1,000, we can project what might be happening over the next few hundred years. Because remember, Paul Sappho said something like this: if you want to understand the future, look back twice as far, even 3 times as far. Go back further to understand trends, big trends in the human story on planet Earth. Is it making sense so far, Parsa? Yeah? Mubarak? Okay. Well, they were trying to understand what's happening to the natural world as a result of human development on this planet. They were trying to understand the question, what is the cost of human progress? Now, let's stop for a moment before I depress you. When I say human progress, forget about the human part. Let's just talk about progress. What do you think? When you think about the word progress, something's been happening as a result of humans on this planet. What would you call that progress? What do you think?
Moving forward.
Moving forward, okay. Let's put moving forward. Okay, progress, moving forward. Moving forward. But we'll try to get more specific, okay, in terms of how have we been moving forward? Parsa, what do you think? How have we been moving forward, humans? And you're not an expert. I'm just asking you to help us understand something about progress, because I'm going to address this more deeply. What is progress in your estimation?
For technology, you mean?
Let's talk about technology.
Yeah.
Number 2, technology.
Technology,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Technology, okay? So
I could get deeper with it. Check out.
moving forward with technology, meaning that we've been developing lots of new technologies, like the microphones, like the video dashboard, like all the computers. Oh, Parsa, where do all of these, the raw materials for for this come from? You know, this material here, or the material used for this. This might be, is this some kind of metal? And then here it's some kind of plastic. And then inside there's some microprocessors. Where might some of these things be coming from to make that? Coming from the sky, from trees, from, you know, something humans created in a laboratory, or could it be from nature?
I forgot. I'm having like a. What's the place like where all the garbage goes? What's it called?
The landfill?
Yeah,
Landfill.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where it goes when it's, so when we make that computer, let's say the silicon chip, where is silicon coming from? Sand. It's a lot of sand. Silicon is a natural element in nature. Probably if we look at how Carol's computer was constructed, we would see that the metals and the plastics are coming from some natural source in the end. That's human progress. We create things, but in order to create them, we need materials to create them, and that comes from nature. And that can create a problem because we start to use too much of that material. Let's keep going, okay? I'm just introducing you to this idea of human progress and some of the costs before I show you some figures. A lot more technology, definitely. No question, the facts show that. We move forwards. Yes. What else might we say about progress? What is progress? Nico, what is progress? It's okay. Try and put it into some words. Okay. Okay, let's talk about, do you have a car? Okay. Who drives a car here? Okay, Grayson. Let Grayson answer this, okay? Grayson, where does the gasoline come from to help make these cars go? We could say there are a lot more cars in the world. That's progress. People are driving faster. They get around more easily. They can be comfortable in their cars. They can listen to music. They can, you know, do all sorts of things that make life feel pretty good. But how does that car go? Gas. Where does that gas come from?
Gas comes from inside the earth.
Yeah,
They take it out of the earth.
absolutely.
or-
And what is it inside the earth that's giving it that power? It's something that we call a fossil fuel, right? Fossil fuel. It's dead stuff that's in the crust of the earth. It used to be trees and plants and other vegetation, and it died, and it over time it got covered with sediment, and it got buried under this and cooked in the heat in the earth, and then gradually got all black and gooey. And then we figured out how to draw that out of the planet and then burn it in an engine that creates all this pollution. But it starts with a material in earth. Put a material in earth. See, what these scientists were trying to really get at is, how do we sustain all of this growth on planet Earth if so much of what we create is being drawn from the planet, or so much of what we pollute is being put on the planet, like these landfills? Where do you just more and more landfills? That's not very good. Once upon a time, not too long ago, we used to bury chemicals around the Niagara River. Really toxic chemicals. And then there was a crisis called the Love Canal crisis. Right on the Niagara River, American chemical companies and Canadians buried a very, very powerful toxic chemical, digoxin or dioxin. And in the 1960s and 70s, we discovered that the barrels in which these chemicals were released were leaking into the gorge face of Niagara River and polluting Niagara River to such an extent that it was becoming dangerous to be near. all the people who lived around this community had to be evacuated because of these chemicals that had been buried under the ground and were now beginning to seep back up or through. So we have this problem, Parsa, of we extract stuff and then we create all this waste, and we put the waste back into the natural world, but we don't really think about the cost. A lot of you know this. A lot of you sense that something's wrong, but maybe none of you have ever really seen the facts laid out this clearly. Let me show you what these scientists began to understand. It's called the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. Okay, and could you write this down? Just put Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. It's one of the most comprehensive studies ever done. Millennium is M-I-L-L. This is a tough one. M-I-L-L-E-N-N-I-U-M. That's Millennium. M-I-L-L. Nice. And nice handwriting. Ecosystem. Second word, ecosystem. E-C-O-S-Y-S-T-E-M. And then another tough word coming, assessment. You got 4 S's. A-S-S-E-S-S-M-E-N-T. So what I'm about to present to you are the results of 800 scientists, approximately, from around the world who came together to try and understand what are we doing to the natural world. What has our civilization been doing? I'm going to present these figures to you, but then at the end, we're going to become optimistic again. But right now, it's not going to be very optimistic. But you need to know this. You need to know that there's some real hard information that demonstrates that we have a problem on planet Earth right now, but we can fix it. Okay, I'll let you guys go back. Okay, if you can sit in your seats around, just stay in the couches. Okay, and I'm going to talk a little bit more, and then we'll come back. Okay, but thank you. So that's the beginning, from Parsa and from Mubarak, giving us their idea of what human progress is, moving forward, a lot more technology. And I'm beginning to help you to see that there's a cost for making all this stuff. It just doesn't come out of anywhere. And that's what I'm going to show you right now, what that cost is. You're looking at what the scientists determined is a thing called the world GDP, the world gross domestic product. Now, in order to understand this clearly, first you have to understand something about domestic product, and you also have to understand how they've laid this out. So I want to walk you through this chart. But again, I want to reiterate, you're looking at the most comprehensive attempt by human beings to understand what is the cost of human progress on planet Earth. And they were looking over 2000, going back so that they can look forward. So let's take a look at this graph, for example. You can see that on the horizontal line, those are the years. So that's 500 AD, 700 AD, 900 AD, all the way up to 2100. And we can see on the other side, the vertical side, that is the gross domestic product, the world GDP in trillions of dollars. So let me first explain. Does anyone want to try and explain to the class what GDP is? Because it's a really important economic term that drives so much of our understanding of human impact on the planet. Anybody online? Tessa? Brandon? Maria? GDP? There might be somebody out watching the recording a couple of days from now, but I'm afraid we can't hear you at the moment, but you might just know. GDP is the stuff we make So every country generally has a thing called the Canada's GDP or US GDP, or it's the goods and the services that the country produces. It's the stuff that that country manufactures, all the stuff. It's all the services that they provide, whether it's, you know, the woman who works in the restaurant, or the guy who's taking, you know, your ticket at the Toronto Maple Leaf game. It's anything that somebody does that they're being paid for. It's a service. But then we make things. We make knapsacks, we make hats, we make computers. That's a good. So a country determines its economic strength by how much it's producing. And when we say Canada's GDP is up, that's good, because we generally say, oh, that means we're producing more things. We're making more things. So what the scientists did is they came up with a figure for world GDP. They tried to tell us there is a way of looking at what all human beings collectively all over the world are doing. It's called, what has humanity been producing? What have they been making? What services have they been providing? Well, take a look at this. If you go along this part, you will see that going back 1,500 years to 500 AD, the world GDP was very, very low. Very, very low. And it remained that way for a long time. 900, 1100, 1300. And we start to see, though, something beginning to happen in the 1700s, about 300 years ago. Does anybody know what the term is that we often use to describe this moment in history when we started to see a lot more being produced? You might have heard this term before. It's called the Industrial Revolution. Our lives today are profoundly industrialized. Well, that started about 300 years ago. And what we begin to see after that, and I can explain more about what that means, is we begin to see that gradually we start to create more things, but then it really takes off in the 1900s. In the 20th century, look at the remarkable growth of all the things that we were producing. 1900, 1 trillion. 1967, 10 trillion. 2003, estimated to be 52 trillion. In other words, in 100 years, beginning largely with the 20th century, driven by the Industrial Revolution, we started to see a massive amount of new things being created. We could call them technologies, cars, planes, radios, things for movies, weapons for wars, tanks, guns, so many new things. All this stuff is being created. Where is it all coming from? All these things that are being created. We say that since the Industrial Revolution, in fact, just in the last 200 years, we've seen the world's population grow 8 times. It's gone up 8 times. We have seen the usage of water grow 50 times. We're using more water to drive a lot of things. We've seen productivity increase something like 60 times, and we've seen the energy usage to make these things grow about 75 times. So this remarkable growth driven by the Industrial Revolution, which created many new technologies, many new things, but also at what cost? I'm going to tell you a little story, and then we'll stop for a moment. I don't have to tell you everything today, but I want you to begin to understand that there is a cost to human progress, that we are only just beginning to understand. The tip of the iceberg is climate change. It's real. we're having more wildfires, more floods, more extreme weather events, more earthquakes, more volcanoes acting, because humans are making an impact on the natural world across the board. What do we do about that? Well, let me give you something quite stunning to drive this home. How many of you know about the Milton Conservation Area? You know about Milton? It's a little place not west of Toronto. Well, you ever heard of a place called Rattlesnake Point? Well, it's a hiking trail. And at the end of Rattlesnake Point is a little lake. It's called Crawford Lake. Could you write down Crawford Lake? Because I'm about to tell you something that's going to blow your mind. Has anybody ever heard about Crawford Lake? Tessa, have you ever heard about Crawford Lake? Brandon? No? Okay. If you Googled Crawford Lake right now, you could read all about it because it's now becoming an extremely important place for the entire world. Guess what? The World Geological Societies have just decided that our lake at Rattlesnake Point has critical evidence about human impact on planet Earth. There were several areas in the world that were in contest to be chosen as the one location in the world where there is irreversible evidence that human beings are changing the natural world in a very significant way. They found that in the rocks of the world, underneath, there is a sign of our presence that is making scientists ready to say we are entering a new era in history. It's called the Anthropocene. I've touched on this, but I want to explain this a little bit more. Can you write down Anthropocene? Crawford Lake, it turns out, Anthro, Anthropocene, Pocene, means change driven by humans. Next year in Korea, the world's geologists are going to be making an announcement. They're going to be coming together for a big conference, and they're going to say, we now are ready to say that the Earth is entering a new phase. It's not the Holocene anymore. It's the Anthropocene. For the first time in the history of all life on this planet, a creature on this planet, we humans, are driving change that's happening in nature. Not Mother Nature. We humans are doing it. And where's the evidence? Canada. Just around the corner, Crawford Lake. Let me explain. There are many ways we can look at human impact today on planet Earth. It comes back to the idea that humans have created so much, so many new things, including weapons of mass destruction, that we now have to really take a close look at what are we doing to nature? This is the dark part. The good part is we're living longer. We're overcoming many natural problems. This is all good, but when it comes to the natural world, we're living in a period of transition. Crawford Lake, it turns out, has this remarkable geological feature underneath the water where you can see layer by layer by layer in the sediment that's been building over the decades and centuries, what has been put into those layers over time. It's like when you look at the tree rings around a tree. You look around and you can see the age of that tree by the number of rings. Well, when you go into Crawford Lake and you go to the bottom and you start to look at the rock, these scientists can actually see, they can take a chunk of that rock underneath and they can see, here are the layers of sediment going back all the way about 500 years. They could even see in the 1500s the corn pollen from the corn that was being grown by the First Nations that were living around those areas. So you can see the evidence of what was happening in the world then in the rocks. Is this making sense? You follow? Well, guess what they've got now? In 1945, when they get to the layer of 1945, guess what they start to see in the rock? It wasn't put there by nature. It's put there by humans. And it's dangerous. Plutonium. Plutonium is in the rocks there. Plutonium. Where would plutonium come from? Plutonium got into the rocks. And it's there, and it's going to be there for a long, long, long time. But it's evidence of something that humans put there. How many of you have seen the movie Oppenheimer? Prerna, good. Okay, let's explore this a little bit. Do you remember in Oppenheimer to make the atomic bomb that was detonated over Japan to end the Second World War, the mushroom clouds, atomic weapons? What ingredient, what is one of the ingredients that you need for humans to make an atomic bomb? The explosions from the atomic bomb. And then the testing that was done after the war when the Russians and the Americans started to test their weapons and greater weapons, that plutonium came from the atmosphere, went down into the rock, and stayed there. Did Mother Nature ever make an atomic bomb with plutonium? No, we humans did. That evidence in those rocks in Crawford Lake is called a golden spike. It's the golden spike. The golden spike has been discovered in Canada, in Crawford Lake. And for all of, well, for many, many millennia into the future, when people go back and they start to talk about the Anthropocene, when did we really start to see this clear geologic evidence that humans are having an impact on nature? We began to see it in the rocks, in that place called Canada. But it may not be Canada then, it may be some other thing. If we go through a lot of these findings among the scientists in this ecosystem assessment, we will see this remarkable thing happening. The Great Acceleration Dashboard. Since 1950, actually, really in the last 75 years or so, we have seen all of this starting to really peak. World population, gross domestic product, energy use, fertilizer consumption, all of these things are accelerating. What are we going to do? Our presence on the planet is having an impact, a real impact. So what do we do? How do we make sure that we don't get severely depressed and feel that disaster is coming, that it's going to get worse and worse. What do we do when we know we have a new problem that the Earth has never really faced? The dinosaurs and other creatures have never had this kind of impact, but we have had in a very short period of time. So what do we do? Yeah. Let's take the next 5 or 10 minutes and then we're going to conclude the class for today. Okay? I told you it was going to get a little bit heavy with some data. So we might want to now, like we've passed the worst part. I've just dumped some things on you that are heavy. Now what do we do? Could you start a new slide, Prerna, and just go going forwards? Third millennium. Going forwards in the third millennium. We're living in the 2000s now. It's the third millennium. We've established that some of you are millennials. You were born during this critical moment. Did you know that? You're born during a revolution. There is something going on the planet. It's very volatile, very complex right now. That's why we see war, we see a lot of confusion, but a lot of it is driven by the fact that we don't know what to do with our presence on planet Earth because it's a problem for all of us. So let's lighten this up. What do we do when we know we have a big problem? Thank you. It's Tony. Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Let's put that word up there. Change. Yeah. Do you really think change is easy for you? Let's start with you. I know if I asked each of you what's bothering you, you would tell me a whole bunch of things. You fill my ear with all of this. Come on in. And then some of you would start complaining about, well, it's that stupid school I'm going to, and it's that idiot employer I have, and it's these dumb politicians, and you'd complain about it. It's everybody else who's causing this problem, but not me. No, I'm not going to change. They should change. Well, listen, any basic philosopher or any therapist would tell you, you want to change anything real, you start with yourself first. Then you venture out into the world and make some changes. But if you think it's all going to happen with people making changes around you, it's because you just aren't taking responsibility and you're just a child waiting for daddy or mommy to come in and make those hard things better for you. So Tony's right. But I'm going to just put it out there to all of you right now that I think most of you, including myself, don't like to change. You'd rather stick with what's familiar, even if you know it's not very good, because you're scared. You don't want to go into the unknown and try something new and be adventurous. You'd rather just stick to what is familiar, even if it's destructive. Even if you know that it's on the road and it's going to take you somewhere you don't want to go. Nico? Yep. Great. Go ahead.
Well, we don't like it when we feel uncomfortable, right? And when we change, that's really uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
So that's why a lot of us are resistant
Absolutely.
against
Very difficult.
stubborn.
So what should Prerna write there? We've got a great start. Change. So we're talking about positive now, okay? Just very introductory. Okay, I'm just trying to shake you up a little bit today, or just awaken you to what you're living through. That's all. And to do it in a way where you are getting the real information from good sources, as depressing as it is, it's better to face the truth and know what the truth is, even if it's awful, than avoid it because it'll get worse. So I've just given you some bad data, hard data, the beginning of that. So what should she write about the positive thing? We need to go forward so they won't get depressed and overwhelmed.
Like hatching as a better person.
What's that?
Hatching as a better person with change.
Acting as a better person?
No, hatching, becoming a better person from change.
Okay, let's put better person. I'm going to add to that to give you something really significant, a better person. Back in the 1960s, when we humans began to understand that we live on a planet, like we went to the moon and we began to see there it is, and we started to take pictures of it, that happened just only about 60 years ago or so. It's relatively new that we humans understand we're on a planet. And some of us don't even want to think about that. They just want to keep going to war and fight the old wars. But we're in a new world. There was a remarkable historian named Jacob Bronowski. He wrote a book called The Ascent of Man. And he was also a mathematician and a scientist and brilliant. And his television series, based on his book, is a classic called The Ascent of Man. And he said humans, what they need is the coming of a new mind. They need a new mind. They need a new mind. That's kind of what Nico is getting at, the new mind. And he said that we're now entering a period where the new mind is coming. And the new mind understands that we live on a planet and there are limits around what we can do on the planet because we can impact the natural systems of the planet so that the planet gets destabilized. That's climate change. So, you ready for a new mind? Are you ready to open your mind to some new things? I'm just putting it out there, okay? Starts with Tony. Nico, nope. I don't think so, Nico. I think that when you go back into human history and you see that we almost became extinct in the last ice age 100,000 years ago, and we walked through the ice sheets around the world, and we figured out how to survive in extreme places, and we then found, as the world warmed up, that we could build civilizations. We humans were really smart, really adaptable, and very adventurous, and not afraid.
I also think we're very stubborn.
Absolutely. Change is difficult. Change isn't difficult. Ooh. Let's go over here to Tony. Yeah. Go ahead. Tony? Yeah.
If we start realizing that change starts with ourselves, then if everybody changes those little things about, for example, recycling really isn't difficult, but
Not
it can,
difficult?
if everybody does it, it has a great impact on the world. So everybody thinks of change. Global warming.
Yeah.
Global warming seems like such a huge topic, such a impossible thing. But really and truly, if we can change the little things that we do on a day-to-day basis, as everybody, as a community, as a being, then we can affect that in such a major way. So change doesn't have to be difficult. It just has to start with us doing the small things as a whole.
Small things. I'm going to give you an example of something that you may not have thought about. And then we'll conclude, okay? There's a heavy information today. But how many of you smoke? Over here? Well, I did for quite a long time. My pack a day of Rothmans. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, okay. Okay, you smoke, fair enough. We don't need to talk too much about this. But only one. Where are the ashtrays? When I grew up, wasn't that, I'll be 61, you go out in a public place, you go to a bank, you go to a Leaf game, ashtrays. Go to the airport, smell of nicotine, you know. And then when we started to understand something about nicotine and tobacco and cigarettes, and we started to change, restaurants and bars and pubs all said, oh God, if you take away smoking in these places, we're all going to go out of business. You know, it wasn't that long ago that your parents and grandparents were all smoking. Tony will eventually stop. Who knows, but it takes time. I understand. And he'll stop for a reason. And why is that? Why wouldn't we all just keep smoking? Whatever happened to the smell of, you know, tobacco and everybody you walk around? It's all gone. What? We changed. And we changed pretty quickly. Each and every one of us changed. Each and every one of us started to believe the science. Each and every one of us started to understand that, yes, contrary to what was believed 100 years ago, that smoking gives you energy and helps to actually increase. Do you know that men, when they used to cycle the Tour de France, used to smoke because they thought it would help them? I remember when I grew up playing hockey, you know, and I started working in hockey world, and I had a chance to skate with some great hockey players. I remember going and seeing Guy Lafleur, the great Guy Lafleur, getting off the ice and smoking. Humans can change. Each and every one of us can change, but the question is when and how we will do that. But we can, Nico. We absolutely can. What should be the question for Tony at this point? Just one smoker. I don't think Tessa smokes, right? Tessa, do you smoke? And Brandon, do you smoke? No, I don't. Absolutely. And all the students watching the recordings in this class, probably none of you. So,
Singled out, to be honest.
you feel singled out?
I feel singled out.
If there's one person who can handle being singled out, it's Tony. Okay. When is Tony going to stop smoking? At what point do you think he will? Like, what has to happen?
When he wants to change, I guess.
When he wants to change. Lovely. You're reading my mind. He's just not ready. But he said he's going to be. So all of us have to be ready, but first we need good information, don't we, to make that change. I'm simply telling you that at some point in the last 50 years, we began to trust the research that said nicotine is harmful, the filters that are being put in cigarettes are being enhanced so that we will smoke more. We started to believe journalists who told us this. We started to believe doctors who presented us with, you know, pictures from x-rays and of charred lungs. I mean, today, if we tried to stop this movement, I suspect it would be a huge Instagram movement and social media saying, but that doctor, he just drew that picture of the lung and the char. That's made up by that guy and that guy. And we would all not believe anything. At a certain point, we have to believe that there is good information out there and there are people who care about us. And then we act. And we change. We get educated. Yeah. Thank you, Prerna. Which is what you're doing right now. You are getting educated. Tony's a smart guy. He's educated. He knows. It'll happen. He might have a health scare. You know, it takes time. I understand, but he knows. Get educated, Nico. Do what you're doing. So we're going to end there today by just first establishing a little review. We've established that humans are having an impact on the natural world that is unprecedented. The evidence for the shift that's happening on the planet is right there at Crawford Lake. Go hike there. Go Google it. You'll see there's so much information. But there are ways forward that can help us get educated. And there are examples of change that we are prepared to make. We do it. Any questions? Everybody good? Okay. What was that breathing? Did you breathe in through your mouth or did you breathe in through your nose? There's a little bit of progress right there. In through your nose, hold it out through your mouth at least 4 times as long as you inhale. Do that a little bit and you'll get into the chill state. Calm. Peace to everybody. See you next week, okay, guys? Thank you. Yeah, it's okay. Tony, I'm glad you walked in because I know you always you're ready to tell us stuff. And I know I can single you because I know you understand. Yeah. Good. Okay. All right, let me get the live chat. Any questions here from the online folks? I'll just come back and see where are we? Oh, over here. Brandon says it's not wrong if you don't want to change either. Well, no, it's not wrong, Brandon, but we want Tony to live a long time. Yeah. We want him to breathe well and yeah. See you guys.